Hey everyone, Matt here from Herbal House, and in this video we are taking a closer look at the 9-watt variation of the FLEXSTAR LED. So there's an 18-watt and a 9-watt. This is of course the shorter 9-watt variation. There are two LED bars in here, but we're going to cover all the specs and features and what makes these so great. So let's get right into it. So why would you want a propagation LED? Now, specifically for germination and propagation, they're going to balance the right amount of intensity with the desirable spectrum your plant's going to need to thrive in these very delicate stages. Now, these particular LEDs, and at least all the propagation LEDs we have to recommend, are built for the harsh environments. They've got clear covers on them to keep the diodes safe, which are Samsung diodes in this particular case. They've got rubber sealed O-rings for the cable connections, so you know that they're actually going to withstand harsh conditions day in and day out. All right, so let's kick it off with the packaging in the box. So obviously we've got FLEXSTAR clone LED, 9 watts. Now just remember it says 9 watts, that's per bar. There are 2 bars in this, which we'll cover in a second. Just on the back side here, let me flip this around. They have the specs and features that they recommend on how to use this light. So they have some ideal recommendations for setting it up, the distance between the bars, and what you'd want in terms of the canopy coverage. We're actually going to do some tests to show you guys what sort of readings we're getting. Of course, the specifications on the output of the light and its CCT input voltage and all of that good stuff. Obviously, we're going to be doing tests to sort of validate that these are good equipment and, you know, worth your money and all that stuff. But let's get straight into it now. So let's flip this around and I'll just wiggle this casing off. Alrighty, so right in the top here, you'll see we've got 2 LED bars. Now, they're exactly the same as the long versions, apart from they are shorter and less wattage. And let's just pop these out here. So what you'll see on these panels is they're exactly the same. We've got pretty much a male and a female end on either, and you'll actually see on the corners here, we've got input and output, and same at either end. Now what that means is you basically, how you daisy chain them together, because there is actually one main power cable, which we'll get to in a second. Pull these out. We've got some mounting brackets, which are always handy to have. Those are just going to snap onto the back of the panel. We'll show you what that looks like in application soon. A couple of mounting brackets, more packaging, and we have the power cable. So in this particular case, you're just going to hook this up to one of the inputs of the LED. It's going to power through and then daisy chain into the next light easy as. But then what do you do with the end that you're not using? They have included a blanking cap for that specific reason, so you can blank it off to keep it nice and safe and waterproof, and of course some zip ties for fixing those brackets in place. So let's get these strung up and do some tests and show you guys what it's all about. So before I connect this all together, I'll quickly run through the dimensions. I have a handy tape measure here, and each of these bars measures just about 59 centimeters from gland to gland, so pretty much the end of the rail each. So if you, depending on how you want to install these, you can have them lengthways, you can pair them parallel, side by side, no trouble at all, as long as these are connected together. Now the power cable itself is 4 foot, which is about 1.2 meters, so good to know there's a bit of length there. So I'll just show you connecting that now. So I'm just gonna take the output of the power cable here, which is a male end or female, depending how you look at it on the pins, and I'm just gonna connect that to the input here. So just rotate it until it clicks in and then tighten up the fitting so it is a watertight seal. Easy as that. So we've got power going into this one now, so if I plug that in, it will operate, but we're going to connect them all together. So I've got the output here, which now needs to go to the input of the next light. Quite simple really, same dealio. Line up the plugs, tighten them together for a nice tight seal. No water can get in there. Excellent, good to go. So that is both lights, they will now operate, but we want to be extra safe, right? Because you don't want this open-ended terminal here being exposed to the elements. So we're just going to open up our little bag and take out this end cap, like so, and that is just going to pop straight in there and tighten up. Now it is watertight and you are good to go. So I've got the clips here, but first off, it'll be a lot easier showing installing these clips on a frame. So I'll just move this out of the way and we'll get the frame up on the table. All right, so I've got a propagation tent frame here because this is probably the most common application we're going to see these lights. Of course, just the frame, nothing on it. So I've gone and grabbed just a couple of extra poles to hang the equipment off. Realistically, you can string these up however you want. They're extremely forgiving. But in this particular application, got 2 poles because I'm going to parallel the 2 lights side by side. And I'll just show you the brackets here. If you just want to come down, you'll see there's actually a small screw hole in the backside. That's if you're going to be hard fixing this into a surface like a shelf, perfect for that. But in this case, we're just going to use the included zip ties, and I'm just going to run a zip tie around each one of these clamps, or clips, sorry, and just fix them directly in place on these bars. So because these LEDs aren't too long, you probably want to space these apart about 30 centimeters and it'll be just fine. All right, so now that we've got all the clips in place, of course, if you were a perfectionist, you're probably gonna snip these cable ties and get them more neat and tidy. In this case, we're just doing this for demonstration. So with these particular clips, what you're gonna do is just rest the light up against them. They're actually a pretty easy going clip. You're just gonna flex them out, pop one end in like so. So that's one clip, and I'm just gonna come around to this other side and just try and do that neat and tidy. So there's both lights fitted and fixed. Of course, there's just a bit of excess cable, which is just contorting the lights a little bit. But of course, when you've got a canvas in there, you're not gonna see that happen. So what we're gonna do now that we've got these strung up is I'm gonna plug them in and I'm gonna give you guys some power readings and give you an idea of the intensity you'd expect to see from something like this. All right, so we've powered up both lights here. So that's two 9-watt fixtures running together, so 18 watts of power, so extremely modest when it comes to power consumption. And what we've done is we've just placed, imagining this is a tent with a canvas on it, we've just placed a propagation tray here to get some readings. Now, if I just remove the lid of this and then fire up our power meter, we've got an Apogee MQ500, which gives us some pretty darn accurate numbers when it comes to the intensity from these lights. What I'm gonna do is just give you guys some ballpark numbers right at the level which your plants are gonna be growing or propagating at. So if I just flick this on here, with that pretty much not too centered, we're sitting at about 60 U-mol, 66 U-mol. So that's a really good number for propagating. We generally find we try not to get too much higher than around 100. You can cause light stress at that sort of intensity. So for a lot of people, these are going to be really easy going numbers. So still around just under 60 there. Brilliant, that's what we love to see. But what's more important than just the intensity is the actual spectrum these are producing. So what we've got over here, I'll just drag this over, we've got our spectroradiometer. So we've done some tests here just to get an idea on the spectrum these provide, because of course the pretty picture on the box is always nice to validate. And what we've seen here is we've got extremely high amount of blue photons emitting from this unit. As you'd expect, they're using cold white diodes with of course some blue lights sprinkled in there as well. But what that means for you guys is when you're growing and propagating, you'll expect to see very short, dense and compact growth. So that's brilliant for a lot of people who don't want their plants elongating and stretching out of the grow space. It's a really good place to start vegetative growth. And the common sort of spectrum you'll see in things like metal halide bulbs, and to be fair, all propagation LEDs, at least in this case. So when it comes to these lights, we're extremely impressed. For something less than 20 watts, you really can't complain. And having the versatility of two lights really is a brilliant addition when it comes to propagation lights. The fact that you get two in one box is just really easy going. And I haven't mentioned this earlier, but you can actually run just a single fixture. So I'm just gonna show you right now what that means for you guys. So if I just reach up here and just quickly unplug one of those lights, and I'm just gonna shimmy the bar into the middle a little bit here and line that up. So this is running on just a single 9-watt bar, just for your reference, and we'll take some quick numbers. So if I just rest this here, we're still sitting right around 40 U-mols. Now, for a lot of people, they might be looking for a little more intensity, and this realistically is not a fair comparison, because most grow spaces, at least grow tents, they're gonna have a canvas on this frame, which is gonna reflect that light that's hitting my face back into the tent and increase that number. So this is definitely on the lower side you'd ever see these numbers, and there might be situations where people are setting them up on shelving and racks and they simply don't have a reflective environment. So really good to know what sort of numbers you'd expect to see. And with the versatility, you can set these up to suit your needs, of course. It's just handy we have the instruments to do the testing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please get in touch with us here at Herbal House. Thanks for watching.